Well, we're going to start with some brief introductions, and then we'll kind of, I'll give a quick synopsis of kind of the state of the state, and then really wanted to use this time to answer questions that people had. We were trying to not dominate everybody's evening, so hoping to get everybody out by 7 p.m. So first of all, I'm Kurt Weinsheimer, parent of 2 children here at Willow Creek, a 7th grader and a 4th grader. And if anyone's curious about high school, now a freshman in high school also. And I'm also president of the board here at Willow Creek.
Hi, I'm Johanna Vandermolen. I have 0 children here at Willow Creek. But in my last life, before I retired, I had 7,470 kids in the district. I'm a retired public school superintendent, so I know a little bit about education. My 3rd year, or going on my 4th year on the board here.
Hi everyone, my name is Alina Monder. I have 2 children here at Willow Creek, one in 4th grade and one in kindergarten, and I'm the newest member to the board.
Great. And both Johanna and Alina are on the unification committee, which we'll talk a little bit about. But this is 2 committees that we created. The Willow Creek board created unification committee, and the district also created a unification committee. And those 2 committees are working together to research the opportunity to bring the 2 schools together. And so we can kind of get into that a little bit. But one of the reasons that we wanted to kind of talk with you all tonight is that with the Attorney General's settlement with the district, there are kind of changes going forward, and a lot of people are curious about what that means for the school, what that means for students, what that means for the broader community. And so, I don't know how many people were at the meeting that the district had. Was it a week ago Tuesday, maybe 2 weeks ago, talking through this settlement, the AG settlement? Okay. I think they videotaped that. So if you want kind of like the deep dive on all the different aspects of that, please do watch that video, because they went through more of the details of the AG settlement and all of that. And we're not going to go through that, through all of that tonight, because I think we wanted to kind of more talk about what we see as kind of potential path forward. But I'll give you kind of the brief summary is the Attorney General and the district have agreed to settle in order to desegregate Bayside MLK. As I think we've talked about before, Bayside MLK is a segregated school, and that's something that is not a good thing for anybody. It's not a good thing for the school community. It's not a good thing for the students. It's not a good thing for the broader community. It's not a good thing for our society today. And the idea that we're still fighting that is a pretty sad state of affairs. And so I think, therefore, the settlement that they agreed on was to figure out how to desegregate Bayside MLK. And there are a lot of details around stipulations of this settlement. I think as opposed to going into those details, I would put it probably this way. In talking to people about the specifics of the settlement that say you need to get to a certain level of mix of students from different communities by within 2 years, another within 5 years, and if things don't happen within that period, there will be consequences, etc. I think talking to different people in the community, talking to the community leaders, one thing people agree on is that the actual specifics of the settlement are not necessarily where we want to go or need to go. The most important thing is to figure out how do we integrate and desegregate all the school community that we have here. And so I think what we should really be focusing on is how do we do that in a way that really builds on the school community we have today? how do we do this in a way that 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, there are more kids going to public school than there are today or there ever were before. And so when we look at kind of where we can be going together, I think that there are a couple different ways that we can move forward. One, and kind of the clearest that people have talked about, is bringing the two schools together. Bringing Willow Creek together with Bayside MLK into a single school that serves our whole community. And that's something that obviously we've thought a lot about and we've been talking about for quite a while. And we see that there's a lot of potential for that to be a good solution. And we think that that could be a great solution if we do it in a way that builds on the success that we've had. So how do we build on this sense of community that has come together at Willow Creek with families from Marin City, families from Sausalito, families from outside the district, all going to school together? How do we build on educational work that's happening both at Willow Creek and Bayside MLK? How do we do this in a way that everybody feels like the new school environment is their school environment? I think that's a really great opportunity for us. And that's something that Johanna's working on and Alina's working on as part of the university unification committee. I think the second option is that Willow Creek keeps growing as it grows, and Bayside MLK desegregates in another way. It could be that we merge with Mill Valley School District. Because if either the schools merge or the districts merge, the AG has agreed that as part of the settlement solves the segregation problem that we have. So I think it's important for us to be open to all different options that we have in the long term, as long as those things are helping build on the school communities that we have in a positive way. That's the thing that we really want to focus on, is how do we do this in a positive way that continues to serve all kids. I think also I've had a lot of feedback from people that are nervous. So one thing I want everyone to feel comfortable about is, yes, Willow Creek will be here next year. And yes, you will have great public schools here next year, the year after, and forever following. That's our commitment. That's what we are driving against. And whether next year is the first step in unification of the two schools into a single school, or it's the beginning of unification of the two districts, we will have a positive path forward. I guarantee that. We just have to figure out the way to get there. And the way we're going to get there is by bringing all of our community together and making sure that our voices are heard, and that our friends' voices are heard, and that parents' voices are speaking to what is best for their kids and their families. So I'll stop there as kind of like a brief introduction, and then I'll answer some initial questions, and then would love to have Johanna and Alina to give a little bit more of an explanation of what we're doing from a unification committee scale. Question? Yeah. Two schools in the district, and Bayside MLK increases its enrollment through out-of-district students or bringing students from Sausalito. The reason I didn't really talk about that is kind of like continuing two schools without unification, at least with Mill Valley, is that just feels like a zero-sum game. And to date, that hasn't really worked that well. I think what we really need to do is figure out a path for progress. And I don't think continuing just as two separate schools in such a small district is going to work, right? There are 500, 530 kids in our whole district. You know, that's smaller than most elementary schools in California. So I think that we either need to be part of a larger school community as far as being a broader district to give students more choice, or we need to come together and create a school that really works for our whole community. So that's, I think, where the option, more of the options come into play is if we did unify into a single school, what does that look like? And I think, you know, from restorative justice and those kind of cornerstones that have made Willow Creek work. So there are a lot of different ways that we could bring this together. I think the key is that we're doing the detailed work and we're letting facts and knowledge and information drive the decision making. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I have another one.
Yeah, sure.
So with respect to the district unification option, is that something, I mean, I simply don't know the procedural steps here. But
Yeah.
is that something that Sausalito, Marin City can even unilaterally do, or does that require?
No, so yeah, so the way that unification would, yeah, the way that, so let me just back up real quick. The county has been looking at, yeah, sorry. The question was, what does district unification mean? What would it mean to have Sausalito, Marin City, and Mill Valley School District come together? I was on a committee that the county created to look at the possible unification of the school districts. And there's basically kind of like 6 or 8 criteria that you officially have to hit in order to make it a viable option. And then once you decide that from an academic, student, financial, environmental, cultural standpoint, it makes sense to bring 2 districts together, you then have to vote on it. So both communities would vote to unify in order to make that happen. And this is something that actually, interestingly, talking to leaders in Mill Valley and also people around, there's more energy around that today than there had been in the past. But there's still a lot of unanswered questions around it. But yeah, that would come down to a vote.
Thank you.
And the county is kind of leading that process. They're continuing to lead the research on that work. We'll be sharing that with us. And I'll try to repeat the questions. Thanks.
Has there been any consideration made for the fact that Willow Creek has done more with less for more children in both the Sausalito and Marin City community than Bayside has been able to achieve? Because I've been here for 30 years. This was Bayside. This was Martin Luther King Elementary. This was a failed experiment 30 years ago. They shut it down. And although I'm not really comfortable with the whole talk of segregation, because basically, from what I saw, a lot of what came down were people who had no investment. They were older couples that said, I don't want these children walking through my neighborhood twice a week. And we would have arguments with them going, what's the problem? This is not an issue that you should be concerned about. That was 30 years ago. And it seems that the AG is reacting to something from the past because this is the experiment that worked. It evolved. And some people can point fingers saying, you know, well, they have more money. Like, well, we have more money, but because we have more students, we have more people who want to be here. But we're using less money per student.
Yeah.
So, and we've got property in front of the school right now that's owned by the district that could be used for more classrooms. Why don't they just give that to us? And then it's like, that's the first step.
Yeah.
Because we could probably still get by with less money because you can see all the people that are here and are invested. And unfortunately, it's, you know, it's tricky. It's a tricky thing because, you know, I'm Latino, but nobody thinks I'm Latino. My wife is Taiwanese, but that still is like,
Okay, so I think your question is,
My question being, are we considered on our merits, or are are we being punished for something that nobody in this room is responsible for?
Yeah, okay, I'll start with the first question. Are we being considered? I think, are we being considered, let me broaden the question into, are we being considered in the process? I would say that as in regard to the AG and the AG settlement, the answer was no, we were not. We requested to be part of the process, and were denied that opportunity. We are actually working through the courts to intervene and become part of the process officially. So we don't officially have a seat at the table of unification, if you will, but we're working, with the district on unification options. So as far as having a unification committee, we're at an unofficial table right now to try to bring people together. We're also working, through the courts to have an official seat at the table, because I do think that there's a better way for us to all come together. It's a lot easier to come together if you have everyone sitting at a table versus not. And so I think that that's a critical piece, is for us to go into this kind of eyes wide open and say what has worked, what hasn't worked, as opposed to coming in with kind of creating what I would say are false constructed walls that aren't really constructive to the process. So, for example, I think we should be looking at there being 530 kids in our school district. I don't think we should be talking about non-district and district students. I don't think we should be talking about non-district and district schools. I think creating those verbal barriers, those naming barriers, is actually hurting the process. And so that's really some of the work that we want to do, is figure out how to make this happen. I do think it's important that we're all part of this community. We're all part of this community's success and all part of this community's failures. So the fact that Bayside is segregated is on all of us, because we're all part of this community. Now, I think the fact that 80% of kids go to an integrated, inclusive school environment every day, we should also own and be positive about. And so I think the opportunity is for us to take the positive learnings and learn from also the negative situations and solve this for all kids. But it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge. Yeah.
I am wondering if the two schools are put together, is it a possibility that Willow Creek will no longer be a charter school and that they'll create a public school? Because I'm worried about that, because I feel that being a charter school is really good for our community, because with the diversity that we do have, there's all different learning styles, and I love how the teachers have more flexibility to teach the students through charters and the public schools.
Yeah. So the question was, if the schools come together, will Willow Creek or whatever the school is still possibly be a charter school or not? Because you were saying, what was your name? Crystal. Crystal was saying that she likes the fact that there's a lot of freedom for the teachers to teach in different ways. I think the critical thing is, whether it's a public charter or another type of public school, I think the key is that we have to ensure that we're able to teach in the dynamic way that's going to serve kids. So making sure that we are doing project-based learning, making sure that we are leveraging restorative justice, that we're doing the type of work that has to be done to serve our community. There are traditional public schools that work within a project-based learning environment, that leverage restorative justice, that do amazing things. But we've got to make sure that, and that's what I meant by the unification's got to be a collaboration and a coalition, so that we're doing what's right for students. Because the other option is, we've got a 5-year charter, and Willow Creek continues to be a great school that grows and serves the community as well as possible. And we find another way to solve for desegregation at Bayside MLK. So we will do it in a way that serves our students really well. That's the key that we need to do. It won't be success if we end up in a school structure that isn't teaching the community in the way that we need to teach it. And so, personally, I think a public charter school structure works really well for us. Given the size of the community, given we're a basic aid district, so we only have so much revenue, it gives you a lot of flexibility that you can leverage. But I think we've got to go into the process looking at all the different options that are there.
To kind of go from that, is it actually possible to only have a charter school in a district? Like, is that legally?
Yeah, so this is what the Unification Committee is actually going through. I've been talking a lot, so I'd love to have you guys answer a question or 3. But yes, it's possible, and the district is doing the legal work to kind of work through all the different structure options.
It's definitely possible to have a charter district. It's possible to be under the conditions that we're under right now. Those are all options for us. I think Kurt said it, he hit the nail on the head. For us, the option that we're looking for is something that keeps our culture the way it is, keeps our instruction, our flexibility, the way we have our kids and community work together. It's a very, very positive culture, as you know, and the school does well. We're very diversified. We want to keep that. We're a good model for what desegregation looks like. And the committee is looking at, it's slow work in progress, but the committee is looking at all the options. No decisions have been made. And so we're clear on the committee, the 2 of us and Jim Henry, who's in the audience somewhere back there, we are the members on the board here who sit on that committee, and there are 2 board members and the superintendent representing the district on this committee. So far, everything is pretty well. We're getting along. We've made it clear we're not sitting there to have a fight. We're there because we want to do good work for our kids.
Just real quick, is the fact that we're a non-union school an issue?
No, it's not an issue at all. However, to us. But however, if something happens and you combine everything to be one entity, then that decision would have to be made. Do you become a union district or become a charter non-union district?
So you can't be unionized and a charter.
And you can be non-union and non-charter.
All of those options are available.
Okay, so
And-
there's no such thing as a unionized charter school.
Yeah, there can be.
Okay, there can be.
Yeah, for sure. I've
Okay,
actually
there's
worked with
items,
some,
so,
yeah,
okay.
for sure.
I just didn't know if there was pressure being exerted because we're non-union.
It's pretty open to what you can do, really. So, and that's the beauty of it.
Is there anything else that you guys would like to mention just as far as an overview of the Unification Committee so far?
Sure. I think a big part of the decision-making down the line is when it comes from parents and from the students. We really want to make this something that is something that will work and something where everyone has a voice in making. And so I believe next month we have 2 days where we'll have another forum, one at MLK and one here at Willow Creek. And so, we want you to come out and, give your opinions and say this is what I would like to happen moving forward, so that we can incorporate that all into the final stages of unifying the schools.
And there was, There is a survey that just came out. If you haven't filled that out yet, please do. I've got a lot of people say, whoa, that's one weird survey, and you know, let it be what it is. But there'll be more surveys, and please, it's just critical that our voice is heard, because the data from that survey, and it's going to all over the community, the data will be used to make decisions. So we really need the voice of those, we need your voice, and we need the voice of the whole community to see where we're going to go. And your voice is going to help the committee a lot, especially people like us.
So that's a completely public survey. It's not limited to the parents of
It is
Willow Creek
not.
and Mesa.
That's why at the beginning it asks what school you're affiliated with. If you missed that, everyone else did too. So, you know, it's the first survey, but there'll be more. But it went out to the whole, as many community members as we could get them to.
Yeah, and so it's important when you fill that out. It is a little bit difficult to understand, but if you are part of Willow Creek, you then answer the questions from the perspective of Willow Creek. It says the district, the district, even though we're officially a non-district school, just act like we're an in-district school and fill it out as it pertains to your understanding of Willow Creek. That's what they had asked us to do. Okay? And Emily, there was a link in the Friday post, is that right?
It's a separate email.
Separate email, okay. Okay, but so there was an email that was sent.
At the superintendent meeting, they had given out a flyer, and he was encouraging people to be on a unification committee. Is that at the district level, and is that just open to anybody who wants to be on it?
Yeah.
Is that a subcommittee of this committee?
Yeah. There are a series of committees, and you all have your choice. The first committee that we mentioned is the one that we sit on with Jim. Then there is another committee called the Desegregation Committee. Their role is to look at options too and give our committee supposedly feedback. That's the way I understand it. Then out of the October 15th and 16th community meetings, and one will be here at 6 o'clock, we will get feedback from you, and from that we will get into work committees. So there might be a work committee on transportation, there might be one on facilities. I'm making this up now because we haven't done the process to get there. But the intent of the district and of us is to have as many voices in this as possible.
Yeah. And so the Desegregation Advisory Committee or group, it's either DAC or DAG, you can actually apply, you can send a note into Superintendent Garcia if you'd like to apply, and just write a quick note that says, I'd like to be a part of that committee. It can be students, it can be parents, it can be a broad group. So if you're interested, I'd encourage you to do that.
And just to follow up, so on that, I mean, I think a big question for a lot is obviously we want to do what's best for all children, but we also can make individual decisions for our own children.
Absolutely.
So for next, it's next year, we know Willow Creek will be here, but is there milestones on when
Yeah.
the unification updates will be and what Willow Creek or all the school options would look like before the end of school year?
The Attorney General's recommendations state that some kind of plan must be submitted to them by 1st or the 20th of February.
Yeah.
So at that point, a plan will be in place. But what I'd really like to add to that is we have a 5-year charter agreement. We're not going anywhere. We have a 5-year agreement, and we're intending to be here. We're intending to be here. And, that's part of our work to look at how being here looks for our community and making sure we're representing your voice.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing, is that the goal is to make sure that we're representing the community and taking care of the needs that we have, to make sure there is no question a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road of do I have to make a different decision for my students? You know, the goal of the answer is to be no, you don't. And I think part of that is us all putting the time and energy into making that happen. Okay? And so, but from a deadline standpoint, it's February. Officially, they're looking to set a plan. But as I said, we're still talking to the district and the AG, so dates made.
And that's a plan. That's not saying in 2 months from then everything will change. That's the plan.
Right. And this is a 5 to 10 year trajectory. So, you know, they need to demonstrate activity and movement, but there is not a need to kind of do something rash that would set things in.
But there was a decision about the budget for next year. That's already decided related to the $1 million program.
So the next year budget gets finalized in June. And so part of this is going to be to make sure that, for example, from a budget standpoint, we're either going to bridge that gap working with the district, or we will be bridging that gap through fundraising or a combination of both. But we're already kind of actively down that path and see a lot of ways for us to be doing things differently than we have. So I'm pretty comfortable from that standpoint.
Differently and not at the expense of our children, of course.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I just want to make sure that I understood what you said correctly, because there was a large budget cut out of this year's budget, which we're covering through reserves, but going forward to next year, Tara's assessment was that the school would be unrecognizable with that new cuts.
Yeah.
So how confident are you that we will be able to, in the next,
Yeah.
meet that funding deficit
Yeah.
for the following year, so that parents and teachers don't get scared off that that budget cut will come for next year?
So this is one of the top conversations that I'm having with the superintendent and with President Green, that we've got to make sure that we are not dropping a grenade in the safety net before we get to the other side of where we need to be. There is strong agreement that we need to solve that. We need to basically build that bridge. How we build that bridge is to be discussed and figured out. So I can't stand here today and say, yeah, don't worry, we got this. What I can say is we are working with the district. We are working with private foundations and working with our foundation. We've hired someone to help drive fundraising outside of what we do today, because we already raised $350,000 a year, really tapping this community. We're going to be branching outside the community. And the good thing is we're actually getting people leaning in to supporting us, because they do recognize that it would be a tragedy to have the outcome of the AG's investigation, to have the only desegregated school go under. Like, how's that for craziness? And so that's the piece that we will definitely be making sure that we don't.
To say that the school will be unrecognizable, I think that is a huge step, and I think that we are fortunately working on the committee to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. But you're right, 100%. Like, based on the way the cuts are set for the budget right now, that is, yes. So that is not a gap that we could fill, that we can't cut our way, if you will, and still be the school that we want to be. We need to find the funds to bridge that gap. That is crystal clear. We cannot do what we do today on less than what we are doing things today. We are already an extremely efficient school. And so we've got to figure out how to get support either from the district, that will be running a budget surplus again for the second year in a row next year, and or combine fundraising. And that's also where, you know, we're working with the courts to ask to have us go back to the budget drawing board to build a more equitable budget that does provide for at least some level of sharing of the $3 to $4 million that the district has at its discretion. So that's really what we're looking to do. Susan?
So can you guys all talk about ways that everyone in this room can help you? I mean, there's just a lot going on. So I mean, you mentioned
You guys
two
wanna start?
ways with the committees, but with the fundraising, with getting the message out, you know.
You know,
Because I think a lot of people feel like they'd like to be doing something.
I mean, really, I think the driver of this is reaching out and making sure that everyone has a voice in this process. So while we do have a great gathering here, there's still so many more parents out there. How can we reach those parents? How can we, utilize all of our, our connections to be able to reach out and have everyone involved? The more parent engagement we have, the more student engagement we have, the more we'll be able to, have a say in what happens.
And if you get a survey, that kind of thing, answer it, but also send the link to all the people you know in the community that might not have a kid here and get their response too. The other thing is to provide the message with us. Things are happening, we're in a position to make good choices for our kids. We're going to do that and let the process play out right now, but we will have updates continually with the community throughout the process up till February and beyond. So help us spread the message that things are going at positive right now and that we have great hope for this to continue that way. Miranda?
Just real quick, so we have had like a huge outreach of people asking to help and support. And so we'll be reaching out to ask people to help on fundraising, helping on community outreach, and helping on unification work. And so we're going to be sending out a note and then setting up basically kind of a community core activation night in which people can come learn about the different projects that we're working on so that they can get involved and have their voice heard. One of the most important things is to keep talking to the district, talk to the superintendent, explain, what you believe, what you think is going to work, because in the end, this is about students and parents and families, and so the more your voice is heard, the better the chance is that we'll get to where we need to be, and that includes the people in Sausalito leadership, people in Marin City leadership, even outside of the schools, anyone that you think that you can bend their ear, do it, because this is critically important.
This is my 8th year teaching here, and I know that Willow Creek has, we are imperfect and we are continuing to grow and evolve, but I'm so proud of this community and I'm so proud of what we've built together. So it's vulnerable and it's hard to be in this conversation. I'd like to know what we're doing to respond to the media, because I feel like this community that we've worked so hard to build is being vilified, and I'm constantly explaining what Willow Creek is actually about. And so I'm wondering if you could speak to that. I'm working so hard, I talk to you all the time to get the talking points down but if we're going to need to do all this extra fundraising and community outreach, I really want people to understand that Willow Creek is not the enemy and it doesn't need to be perceived that way.
Also, just as an aside, that one news story, I had 4 or 5 friends on Facebook just hammering on me, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Going back, and they're like, oh, we had no idea because the story was so one-sided. I'm like, yeah. So we got to do a lot of community outreach to fix that damage.
Yeah. So there are a couple things. So one is we are going to be working with communications team to help us. We are also looking to expand the voices that are speaking on behalf of Willow Creek, and Stacy and Alina are working really hard on that. Because for some people, they're honestly scared to talk. And that's a real bummer. And I'm actually reaching out to the district leadership to ask for their support, because a lot of people are scared because they're not being treated very well if they send their kids to Willow Creek versus not, which is just super sad to even say. But so we're working to expand the voices that are being heard. We're going to be working with the communications team to try to tell a more balanced story on where things are, and look to see if if we can kind of educate people more and more, both at a local level and at a broader level. Because when people do hear the more nuanced story of what's really going on and the challenges that we've had, they see that there's a lot more that can be done and a lot more that's been done. And I think that they see a lot more hope after they learn more than when they hear the initial headlines. Terry?
Yeah. You know this young woman, I don't know your name, with the black home over here. What's your name? Susan. Talking about there are a lot more people that want to do something to help. And there are a lot of people that want to do something to help. And one of the issues, and you see it in the paper, and it's going to continue to grow now, is the fact that African American students continue to be at the bottom of the barrel here at Willow Creek. And it's not something that just happened yesterday. This has been going on. So when we talk about what can we do, we can really begin to focus more energy on those students to bring them up academically. I personally would love to be a part of a committee to help to do that. And then that way you don't constantly have the negative going out. You can really begin to say, yes, this is reality, but this is what we're doing to bring those students up. So it's a real issue, and it's something that we all need to pay attention to and do something about it.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's something, we talked about this at the last board meeting, because when we look at, if you go through our LCAP, which is basically our strategic plan every year, we highlight this is where things are working and this is where things are not working. So low-income students, English learners, low-income African American students are not performing at the level that we need them to be performing at. And I think it's important for us to be looking at what is the work that we have been doing that is working and helping? What is the early child development stuff that is starting to show promise? How do we do more of that? How do we get funding to do more of that? How do we expand, and this is something Emily's really passionate about, how do we expand our teacher base to have a more representative teacher base so that all students are seeing potential leaders in front of them, in front of the classroom, and with them around. And so we've got...
Is there any way we could do, like, if the child is in aftercare, that we could do, mandatory tutoring if they're not, if they're not achieving?
So the other thing is, we're setting up through the board, the committee focused on this, because it's really important that this is driven by the head of school, the teachers, and the staff, and that we're providing them with the resources they need to do everything that they need to do. And that's where we are getting also community input from parents, from caregivers, to understand what's working and not working from their standpoint.
And we're also looking at student growth year after year. So the gap continues to be there, but the growth is happening. It's not enough by any means, but we need to address it, and we are addressing it. I want to get back on what you can do as a committee to help. There's one thing that you can really do, and you can help spread the message on this. You might not be aware that we are funded according to the number of hours a child is at school, not the number of days. So if you take your child out of school on Friday to take them to taco or whatever you might be doing, Or if you take them out in the middle of the day to go get that dental appointment because it's so hard to find one at the end of the day, every time a child is taken out of school, the funding goes with that child. And so we don't get, average daily attendance is not daily anymore, it's hourly. So if you can help us by making sure that kids are not taken out of school during the week for any other than illness, of course, but that they're not being taken out, and if you can help us spread the word on that, that will generate more revenue for us, a lot more. So it's, you know, last year because we didn't really focus, we realized that if we can really put a focus on that this year, a lot more revenue will be generated. So that's a really positive, strong way you can help.
Yeah, it was about $150,000 last year, so it's a lot of money.
Gone.
And just to your, Terry?
Yes, Terry.
Yeah, to your point, you know, one thing you could do if you really want to address the issue, the needs that you mentioned. My husband has been for years tutoring at Bridge the Gap. And it's just something that is easy to do. It's totally rewarding for you personally, but it really does help build that mentoring relationship and academic progress with the kids that really need it at both schools. And I know they need help, and it's just easy. It's based on your availability and schedule. So I, you know, and not feel like, okay, this is it.
Yeah. So the statement was that there are a lot of parents that aren't showing up to meetings anymore because they believe the writing's on the wall and that the school's going to be closed. So what can we do to do a better job of communicating, A, what the plans are that we're putting in place, and B, what can people do? We will get information out and leverage the foundation to really push on that because it's critically important. I think it's taken almost 20 years to build this community, and I've explained to people it can take a year to knock it down. Everything's an experiment all the time, and you need to build a community, and that community is built on trust and faith, and we've got to continue to earn that trust all the time. And I say we as a broader school community. That's on us, it's on our team, it's on the district, it's on everybody, because that's critical. So I appreciate that, and we'll communicate that out. Okay, last two.
Mine's just a really quick comment. I know you mentioned that you should have more visibility into the budget issues from through. But I want to point out that it was around this time last year that we started to see some families looking into other options because applications, if you're going to go to an outside school or a private school, start really triggering by January. So
Yeah.
this is the time that we need to be, you know, looking together as a community and making sure that people are willing to stand
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, so the statement was, we don't really have till June. Yeah, hear you loud and clear. What I've been explaining to both our foundation and then also working with the district is, we basically have till December to demonstrate that we are on a path to build that bridge for next year. If we don't do it by then, we will start to have families concerned. And by the way, you know, it's families of all economic realms. In Marin City, in Sausalito, parents can find a way to go somewhere else and do something different. And so it is critically important that we are solving this by December, not by June. So I do thank you for noting that. This is not a June problem to solve. This is a now problem.
And the unification committee on which we sit, we even shared that with them at the last meeting, like, wait a minute, we need to crunch up this timeline because we have families here waiting to see what's going to happen. And once we said, you know, people might look at other options, it's like, oh, you know, it's like, you got to be real. I mean, yeah, people are going to look at other options unless we get some clarity on where this boat is going, right? So they heard us. I think that will be tightened up now, I'm hoping, and the three of us are certainly pushing for that. But it's a good committee. I think it's going to have a good outcome for all of us. how am I feeling about it today?
But right now, I mean, we're pushing hard with the foundation and setting up a separate capital campaign to go against this because, you know, hope is not a strategy, right? So we are pushing aggressively against that to solve for it for next year. Last question.
Okay, so if the AG's or if the AG decides that that requirements are met all that met by the 5-year mark,
Yeah.
they have said that Bayside MLK will move into Willow Creek's area.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Do we have anywhere to go? Are you guys considering the fact that
Yeah.
there might not be a decision made about the
Yeah.
schools combined?
Yeah, no, so one of the stipulations in the AG settlement is that if in 5 years, Bayside MLK has not made desegregation progress, then they move the school onto this campus and find another place for Willow Creek. As I said, we agree that there's a need for desegregation, but the details of the settlement just don't make a lot of sense. Like, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. And so our goal is to not get there. So if we're worrying about where this school has to go in 5 years, we will have failed. And failure is not an option. So we will not be going down that path. We're going to be figuring it all out way sooner than that to come up with a better solution. Okay? Okay, thanks everybody. Really appreciate it. We'll be around if you guys have continued questions. Thank you very much.